Imagine being proposed to by the man you love, the one you defended when everyone told you he wasn't ready, the one who promised you the world when all you ever asked for was honesty. That was me, standing under fairy lights, music humming softly in the background, tears spilling down my face as he slipped the ring onto my finger. His hands trembled, his voice cracked. "You're my forever," he whispered, and I believed him. God, I wanted to believe him. The whole restaurant clapped. Strangers cheered. Even the waiter smiled like he'd just witnessed a miracle. And for a moment, a brief blinding moment, I thought I'd finally won. All the lonely nights, the unanswered texts, the "I'm just tired, babe" excuses, I told myself they were leading here. To this, to us. But if you've ever trusted the wrong person, you know that feeling, that sharp invisible twist in your gut that says something's off. I ignored it. We drove home that night, his arm around me, the ring glinting under the passing streetlights. He hummed to the radio, kissed my hand at red lights, told me he couldn't wait for me to move in. I smiled. I didn't know he already had someone waiting at home. The next morning, I'd find out just how good he was at pretending. I barely slept that night. My cheeks hurt from smiling. My phone buzzed nonstop, friends screaming in caps lock, my mother crying over the phone, my best friend sending me 20 heart emojis and a single message that read, "Finally, finally." That word replayed in my head like a lullaby. After all the heartbreaks, the false starts, the disappointments that used to leave me staring at my ceiling wondering if love just wasn't written for me, finally, I'd found my person, or so I thought. He dropped me home after the proposal, said he had to finish up some last-minute work things. I didn't question it. He was a manager at a logistics firm, late calls, night deliveries, emergencies, all that. I'd learned to be patient, to be understanding. That's what good partners do, right? But that morning, something felt different. Maybe it was the silence. Maybe it was the way the sunlight felt too bright, too sharp. Or maybe it was the small voice in my head that whispered, "Why hasn't he called yet?" By noon, I still hadn't heard from him. No good morning, fiancé, no photos of coffee cups with "thinking of you," nothing, just quiet. I decided to surprise him, because that's what fiancés do. I wanted to drop by his place with breakfast, maybe wear that soft pink dress he said made me look like a dream. I even packed a small overnight bag, because I assumed, after last night, I'd probably be spending more time there. The drive to his apartment felt longer than usual. Every song on the radio seemed to mock me. Love ballads, wedding jingles, engagement ads, even the universe was in on the joke I hadn't yet heard. When I reached his building, the security guard smiled knowingly. "Congratulations, madam," he said. "Boss told us the good news." I smiled back. I felt proud. He told them? Already? That meant something, didn't it? The elevator ride was silent, except for the soft buzz of fluorescent lights. My reflection in the mirror looked different, like a woman who finally had everything she'd ever prayed for. But as soon as I reached his floor, the first crack appeared. There were shoes at his door, a pair of women's slippers, small, pastel blue, the kind I'd never seen before. At first I laughed. Maybe his cousin was visiting. Maybe his sister. I knocked lightly. No answer. I knocked again, this time harder. From inside, footsteps shuffled. The lock clicked, and then the door opened. She stood there, a woman I'd never seen before, wearing his t-shirt, his gray one. The one I'd seen 1,000 times, with the tiny tear at the hem, the one that smelled like his cologne. Her hair was messy, her eyes were sleepy, and she looked at me the way you look at a stranger who just ruined your quiet morning. "Hi?" she said, her voice thick with drowsiness. I froze, my hand still clutching the breakfast tray. Is Ethan here?" I stammered. She tilted her head slightly, confused, then said the words that broke the sound barrier in my head. "He's in the shower. Do you want me to call him?" I swear, for a second, everything went silent. The world just stopped. The only thing I heard was the faint running water behind her, the sound of his shower, in his apartment, with her inside. I wanted to laugh, to scream, to run, to disappear, but all I could do was stare. And then, as if the universe wasn't done with me yet, his voice called out from the bathroom. Casual, light, familiar. "Babe, who's at the door?" He called her babe, not me, her. My fingers went numb. The breakfast tray slipped from my hands and crashed onto the floor. Eggs, orange juice, glass, everything shattering in one messy, symbolic explosion. The woman gasped. He rushed out of the bathroom, towel around his waist, eyes wide as if he'd seen a ghost. Except I wasn't a ghost. I was the woman he'd proposed to last night, and the woman standing behind him, in his shirt, was the reason his forever only lasted 12 hours. For a long, stretched-out moment, nobody moved. The air between us felt thick, like breathing through water. The woman's eyes darted from me to him, confusion sharpening into understanding. Then I saw it, that look, the kind a woman wears when she suddenly realizes she's been living in someone else's story. I took a step back. The shards of glass from the fallen tray crunched beneath my heel, and that tiny sound somehow broke the silence. He spoke first. "Hey, I can explain," Ethan said, reaching out, still half wrapped in a towel. "This isn't what you think." I laughed. Actually laughed. It came out cracked, wrong, too loud. "Not what I think? Ethan, there's a half-naked woman in your apartment, wearing your shirt and calling you babe. What part of that needs clarification?" The woman, she looked barely older than me, crossed her arms over her chest, suddenly defensive. "I didn't know," she said softly. "He told me you two broke up months ago." Her voice trembled. She wasn't the villain, she was another piece on his game board. "Ethan?" I asked, my voice steady now, colder than I'd ever heard it. He didn't answer. His hand raked through his wet hair as he muttered, "I was going to tell you." "When?" I snapped. "Before or after the wedding? Maybe during the vows. I take you and also my live-in girlfriend." He flinched. For once, he looked small, like the truth had drained the air from him. "I didn't mean for it to happen this way," he said. "I didn't mean to hurt anyone." I stared at him, the man who'd knelt before me just hours ago, promising forever while standing knee-deep in lies. My heart felt like it had teeth. It kept biting itself. "Do you love her?" I asked. Silence. "Do you love me?" More silence. That was my answer. The woman shifted awkwardly, guilt swimming in her eyes. "I think I should go," she murmured. But I turned to her, shaking my head. "No. Don't leave. He should see what his choices look like side by side." She hesitated. Then she stayed. Ethan looked between us like a man standing on a bridge that was finally collapsing under its own weight. "I never planned this," he whispered. "You have to believe me." I took a deep breath. "Planned or not, Ethan, you chose this. You chose to propose to me while sharing a bed with her. You chose to build a dream on two foundations. And now it's all falling apart, isn't it?" He tried to move closer, but I stepped back. "Don't," I warned. My hands were shaking, but my voice wasn't. "You said I was everything you wanted. Turns out, you just wanted everything." I turned to leave. The woman, her name I later learned was Amber, whispered, "I'm sorry," and I believed her. She looked as blindsided as I felt. I walked down that hallway in silence, clutching my bag, my engagement ring still heavy on my finger. The elevator doors closed in front of me, and that's when it hit. Every ounce of disbelief, pain, betrayal. The tears didn't fall in gentle drops. They came in waves, violent and unstoppable. When I reached my car, I pulled the ring off. For a moment it glimmered in the sunlight, mocking me. Then I placed it on the dashboard. Not thrown, not broken, just put away, because endings deserved witnesses. I drove aimlessly for an hour, passing coffee shops and wedding boutiques, each one stabbing a little deeper. I ended up parked by the ocean, the same place he'd proposed to me the night before. The waves were rough that day, loud enough to drown my thoughts. I replayed every laugh, every promise, every "I love you" that suddenly felt like an echo from someone else's life, and for the first time in months, I didn't feel like I was losing him. I felt like I was finding myself. I sat there until the sun set, letting the horizon swallow the last bit of my tears. When I finally started the car again, there was no music, no calls, no distractions, just a quiet resolve forming inside me. I didn't know what came next. Anger, revenge, healing, maybe all of it, but one thing was certain, the story wasn't over. Not by a long shot. Because when a woman walks away from betrayal, she doesn't walk empty-handed. She carries clarity. And clarity, unlike love, doesn't fade. I didn't sleep that night. I don't even remember trying. The adrenaline had burned itself out, and what was left was worse. Silence. That heavy kind that presses against your chest until you can't tell whether it's your heart beating or breaking. By morning, I looked like someone else. Eyes swollen, lips dry, makeup still smudged from the tears I'd refused to let fall inside his apartment. I stared at myself in the mirror of my small studio bathroom, and for a second, I didn't even recognize the woman looking back. That woman wasn't naive anymore. She wasn't hopeful. She wasn't in love. I ran cold water over my face, took a deep breath, and whispered to my reflection, "He doesn't get to end me." But even as I said it, my voice cracked. Because endings have a way of sounding final, even when they shouldn't. Around noon, my phone started buzzing. Friends, coworker, my sister Kayla. I ignored all of them. I didn't know what to say yet, but one call kept flashing over and over. Ethan. I stared at his name lighting up my phone like a curse. 15 missed calls, then 22, then 30. I finally answered on the 31st. Naomi, please listen. His voice was raw, desperate, full of guilt. Don't hang up. I just need to explain. Explain what, Ethan? I interrupted, my voice icy calm. How you managed to juggle an engagement and a live-in girlfriend like some kind of romantic circus act. He exhaled shakily. It wasn't like that. I didn't mean to hurt you. That line's getting old, I said quietly. You should retire it. He paused. She's gone, Naomi. I told her to leave. I want to fix this. I laughed, bitter and hollow. You don't fix betrayal, Ethan. You bury it and you learn from it. He tried again, but I hung up. Then I turned my phone off completely. For the next few days, I moved through my apartment like a ghost. The ring sat untouched on my kitchen counter. My voicemail filled up with apologies and half-explanations I refused to hear. Every time I tried to eat, I'd remember the sound of his voice saying my name, and suddenly, I wasn't hungry anymore. By the third day, Kayla showed up at my door, holding a bottle of wine and a tub of ice cream like she was staging a rescue mission. When she saw me, her smile faded. Girl, she whispered, wrapping her arms around me. What did he do to you? I didn't even try to hold it in. The tears came hot and ugly this time, and Kayla just held me tighter, whispering, he's not worth it, not even a piece of him. Later that night, I told her everything. The proposal, the apartment, the woman. She listened without interrupting, her face switching between fury and heartbreak. When I finished, she said something I didn't expect. You know what the crazy part is? What? I asked. You still think it's your fault. You're still asking why he did it, instead of asking why you're still giving him space in your head. That hit hard. She left me with one piece of advice before she went home. Don't let this be your ending. Let it be your rewrite. The next morning, I woke up before dawn. I didn't plan to. I just couldn't sleep. I opened my laptop and looked at the unfinished blog draft I'd started months ago, back when I still believed Ethan and I were some kind of fairy tale couple worth writing about. The title stared at me, Love That Feels Like Home. I deleted the whole thing, every word. Then I started a new post. The cursor blinked on the empty page, and I typed, sometimes, the person who promises you forever is only meant to teach you how to start over. The words poured out like confession. I didn't name him. I didn't need to. I just wrote the truth. Raw, unfiltered, ugly, and healing all at once. When I was done, I hit publish and closed the laptop. I didn't expect what happened next. By evening, the post had over 20,000 views. Comments flooded in. Women sharing their own heartbreaks, their own lies discovered, their own tears turned into strength. They thanked me for saying what they couldn't, and for the first time since that night, I smiled. Not because I was okay, but because I realized I was getting there. A few days later, I went back to work. People whispered, of course. They'd seen the engagement photos I'd posted just a week before. The big smile, the ring flashing under the fairy lights. Now I was back without it, and everyone had questions. I ignored them, smiled, kept walking, because the truth was no longer my burden. It was his. By the end of the week, I was sitting in my office, sipping coffee, when an email popped up from an unknown sender. The subject line made my stomach twist. He wants to talk. I opened it. It was from Amber, the woman from the apartment. She wrote, Naomi, I don't know if you'll read this, but I wanted to say I'm sorry. He told me you left. I believed him, but now that I know the truth, you deserve better. Much better. And I think he knows it too. At the bottom she'd added a single line. For what it's worth, I left him, and I hope you never look back. I stared at the screen for a long time, tears blurring my vision again, but this time, they weren't sad, they were cleansing. Because finally, it wasn't me who was broken. It was him, standing alone in the ruins of his own lies. And somewhere deep down, I realized this wasn't the ending I thought it was. It was the preface to something new. I didn't plan to reinvent myself. I just started saying no. No to the late night scrolling through old messages. No to replaying every moment looking for clues. No to wondering if he missed me. It began small. Washing my sheets, buying a new mug, unfollowing his mother on Facebook, but every little no cleared a piece of space in my life. And in that space, I started to breathe again. A week after Amber's email, my blog post hit 100,000 views. A small women's magazine quoted a line from it. Sometimes the lesson is loving yourself louder than their lies. They asked if I'd be open to writing a column. I stared at the email for an hour before replying yes. It felt good to be seen for something other than heartbreak. Still, some mornings I woke up heavy. Grief doesn't vanish, it just finds quieter corners to live in. When that happened, I forced myself out of the apartment. Long walks, thrift stores, window shopping for clothes that didn't remind me of him. That's when I saw the red dress. It wasn't expensive, not even close, but it fit like courage, sharp, unapologetic. I bought it, wore it that night to Kayla's birthday dinner, and for the first time in months, I caught my own reflection and thought, she's back. Kayla grinned when she saw me. You look like you just fired your past. I guess I did, I said, laughing for real this time. Over dessert she told me something I hadn't known. Ethan had been fired. His company downsized, and apparently he'd burned a few bridges trying to cover his tracks. I felt nothing. No thrill, no pity, just distance, like hearing about a stranger. When I got home that night, my blog inbox was overflowing. Women asking for advice, sharing stories of betrayal, thanking me for helping them find words. I answered everyone. It became my evening ritual. Light a candle, pour tea, write back. The more I listened to their pain, the smaller mine became. By spring, the magazine column turned into a podcast invitation. They wanted to interview me about healing after deceit. The host asked, if he were listening right now, what would you say? I smiled into the mic. Thank you for teaching me what love isn't. The episode went viral. Within days, I had thousands of new followers, brands asking for collaborations, even an offer to speak at a women's conference in Atlanta. Life, once so quiet, was suddenly loud again, but in the best way. This time, it was my voice filling the room. The conference fell exactly 1 year after the proposal. I almost canceled when I saw the date. Then I realized, maybe that was the point, to stand on a stage, not in a restaurant under fairy lights, but in front of hundreds of women who had survived the same kind of heartbreak and say, we're still here. I stepped onto that stage wearing the red dress. After my talk, a line of people waited to hug me, to thank me. Near the back, someone caught my eye, a familiar face, Ethan. He looked smaller somehow, thinner, like time had taken more from him than I ever could. He approached slowly, holding an envelope. I saw your interview, he said quietly. You look happy. I am, I replied, and it was the truth. He handed me the envelope. Inside was the engagement ring. You should have it back, you earned it more than I did. I looked at it, then back at him. No, I said softly. You keep it. It'll remind you what honesty costs. I walked away before he could answer. Outside, the night air was cool against my skin. I felt light, untethered. The city hummed around me. Car horns, laughter, the rhythm of new beginnings. I glanced up at the hotel's glass doors, caught my reflection one last time, and whispered, she's free. That was the real proposal, the one I made to myself. No ring, no promises, just freedom. 6 months after the conference, my life didn't look anything like the one I'd planned with Ethan, and thank God for that. The ring had been replaced by a pen, the late-night arguments by interviews, and the quiet ache in my chest by laughter that reached my eyes again. Every week my inbox filled with messages from women all over the country, some heartbroken, some healing, some just beginning to believe they could. I made it a rule to answer at least 10 every night. It grounded me, reminded me that what happened to me wasn't wasted pain, it was proof that survival was possible. By summer, the magazine offered me a full-time column called Rewritten. They flew me to New York for a cover shoot, my first. The stylist laid out gowns worth more than my entire apartment, but I asked to bring my own dress, that thrift store red one. When the photographer asked why, I smiled. Because it's mine. It's the dress I wore the night I came back to myself. They loved it. The photo made the final cover. A week later, my phone buzzed with a number I didn't recognize. It was a producer from a morning show. Naomi, we want you live next Friday. Your column's changing lives. Friday arrived like a blur. Studio lights, powder, microphones, the smell of coffee and nerves. The host leaned toward me and said, viewers keep saying your words helped them leave toxic love behind. What would you tell someone afraid to start over? I looked straight into the camera. That healing isn't an ending, I said. It's a beginning. The life you think you lost is often the one you were never meant to live. The audience clapped. I thought that was the end of the moment, until afterward, a staff assistant hurried over with a note. Someone asked me to give this to you. He didn't want to interrupt the taping. The handwriting was unmistakable. Ethan. My stomach tightened as I unfolded the paper. You were right. You buried the betrayal, and you bloomed. I see you everywhere, billboards, interviews, faces of women who quote your words. I just wanted to say I'm sorry, and I'm proud of you. I'm learning honesty now, E. For a long time I stood there staring at it. Not in anger, not in longing, just in recognition. The chapter had closed so completely that even his apology felt like a footnote in someone else's story. I slipped the note into my purse and walked outside into the late morning light. Reporters were packing up, tourists were moving down the block, taxis honked impatiently. I pulled my sunglasses down, breathed in the city air, and smiled. Because somewhere out there, a woman was still crying into her pillow, thinking she'd never recover, and somewhere else, another woman was about to find my article, read a sentence that would make her lift her head and whisper, "Me too." That was my purpose now. That was the real ending. That evening, Kayla called. "You on the cover of Rise Weekly? Girl, you famous." "Not famous," I laughed. "Just free." She paused. "So what happens next?" "Next." I looked out over the skyline from my hotel balcony. The city lights shimmered, a heartbeat against the dark. "Next I write the book." The working title came to me like a whisper, The Proposal That Freed Me. I opened my laptop, the same one that had once held a deleted post about a man who wasn't meant to stay, and began to type the first line. Sometimes the love story that breaks you open is the one that finally lets the light in. The cursor blinked, waiting. I smiled, cracked my knuckles, and kept writing, page after page, until dawn painted the sky pink. And somewhere in the quiet between one paragraph and the next, I realized that the girl who once begged to be chosen had become the woman who chose herself.